In this paper, I'll not so much discuss a specific ritual that took place in my family, but instead I'm going to discuss the traditions that occurred in my family based on the traditional male-female role and the collectivistic view of family first within my family. I would have loved to have been able to interview both of the two most influential members of my family on our traditions. Unfortunately, that's not possible because both my grandmothers passed away many years ago. So therefore, I relied on information that I gleaned from talking with my mother and on my own personal childhood memories in the writing of this speech, which, as I said, will focus on the masculine role and the collectivistic role that influenced my family's traditions and beliefs. When I was speaking with my mom about this, the first thing that both of us immediately thought of was the subject of the masculine feminine roles and how those are influenced in our family. Although my family, neither my mom's nor my dad's family, come from a strong cultural background rich with rituals and traditions, they have a very strong tradition of family and male first culture. A lot of that is focused back from when they were very young. For example, when my great grandmother was a child in the early 1900s, in her German American heritage, she had the traditional female role as the oldest girl of helping with household chores, helping to cook, and help with her siblings. But when the time called for it, because of the collectivistic value of family first, she was also required to help in the fields or help with the animals because at those times, even though the traditional male role females necessitated her being in the kitchen or helping with her mom, there were times that she was required to do a traditional male role simply in order to help the family, which was the most important thing: family first, male-centered culture. The traditions that my great-grandmother influenced were based on those cultures, her traditional German American early 1900 culture. My mother and I have relived and talked about my mother's personal childhood memories associated with my grandmother, those of the women in the kitchen cooking and cleaning while the men were outside working or in the living room, retired to the living room, talking and sharing stories. And the men only came into the kitchen to eat and then simply got up and left immediately upon finishing dinner, and the women would be there helping to clean up and put things away after the meal. This is a tradition that continues on in my family today. I almost said sadly, but that's just not the case. It's just the tradition. At any family gathering, you can rest assured that myself, my mother, my aunts, my sister, my daughters even, are all in the kitchen cooking and getting a meal ready, sharing in each other's companies, while the men are either in the living room watching football or outside working in the yard or hunting, fishing, all of those traditional male roles. Most of the memories of my childhood and of the experiences of my childhood are very fond memories. However, I do have some that are not exactly fond of my paternal grandmother. As I said, she was extreme on her belief of her boys first, the male-centered family role model. So much so that at one Christmas, I was helping my younger siblings and cousins to get their plates ready to then go and eat. And when they were done, I went back into the kitchen to help myself to my plate. And upon seeing my plate, my grandmother literally took the plate out of my hand, put the food back on the platters, and told me to leave the food she had cooked for her sons alone. And that at that point, I literally turned from the room and started crying and ran out. I found out later from my mom when we were talking about this speech that in fact my youngest uncle, who's only 8 years older than me, had cornered his mom and reprimanded her for speaking to me in that manner and for making me cry because he felt that her behavior was inappropriate. And until the day she died on September 11th, 2001, he was literally the only person who would set her correct when her my boys first, my family first cultural view of life became overbearing on the rest of the family. So that was very important for me to learn while I was doing this speech, is that he had actually defended me and stood up for me. So as I previously stated, the two key theories that are most closely associated with my family traditions and beliefs are those of the masculine culture and the collectivistic culture. According to our text, the masculine culture focuses on achievement, competitiveness, strength, material success. That is the characteristics that are most closely stereotypically associated with a masculine people. The importance of money and is a dominant trait in a masculine-centered culture. However, the biggest trait of a masculine-centered culture is the division of labor between male and female roles, which is exactly why my family is, our traditions are strongly associated with that masculine-centered, masculine culture. The other key that is associated with the traditions and beliefs of my family is that of a collectivism, or the belief of group before individual. West and Turner in our text describe collectivism as the belief that the self is secondary to the group and its norms, values, and beliefs. A group orientation takes priority of self-orientation. So the collectivistic culture tends to value duty, tradition, and hierarchy. Families are particularly important to collectivistic culture. Individuals of this culture have a high expectancy of family loyalty. Although my family does not reside in a culture that is normally considered collectivistic, my family tradition and beliefs are closely aligned with the beliefs of the collectivistic culture. The examples of my family traditions I have provided are a clear example of the ways in which my grandmothers both viewed the importance of family above all other things, which is closely aligned with this tradition, the traditional beliefs of the collectivistic culture. In the end, even though my family traditions are stereotypical of both this male-centered culture and the collectivistic culture, it is these beliefs and traditions that have made my family unit so strong. For me personally and my family, I chose to specifically and intentionally focus on non-female male traditional roles. I encouraged my son to come in and help him cook and clean. I also encouraged my husband to take my daughters out and work in the yard and cut wood and all those other traditionally male masculine roles, because it was important for me for them to not embody that stereotypical male role or female role. Thank you. Bye.